Hello guys, and welcome to my Cambridge English First, that's First Certificate, FCE, or B2 First video course. In this video lesson we're going to be focusing on part 3 of the speaking paper. So in the speaking paper there are 4 different parts and they all have different types of questions. Part 3 is called a collaborative task. This involves you talking with your partner about a topic, and you also have some prompts to help you with this discussion. So, in this video lesson, I will show you the best tips, technique, and strategy to follow for part 3 of the speaking paper. And I'll also show you some real practice examples from an old exam paper, and this will really help you when you get into the exam to know how to use these strategies. So, how long is part 3? It lasts for about 2 or 3 minutes. So if you're with one other candidate or with 2 other candidates, it can be longer, but normally it's just you and one other candidate. And that means that you have about 1 minute talking time each. So you do this part of the exam, as I said, normally with one other candidate. Sometimes it's possible that there could be 3 of you, but normally it's just 2 of you. How many topics do you have to talk about? Just one main topic, but you have 5 ideas to help you with your discussion about this main topic. And in this part of the exam, the examiners are looking to see the variety of vocabulary that you can use. So things like phrasal verbs and expressions in English are very useful for this part of the exam. They're also looking for your interaction abilities with the other people. So how well you can have a conversation with another person in English. So this is an example of what a part 3 exercise looks like. And if you go to this web address here and type this into your internet browser, for example Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox or Safari, you will see a document which looks like this. And if you scroll down and move down the page, you will come to a page which looks like this. And that is where I've copied this example from. So, here is a quote from the Cambridge English First Handbook for Teachers. And it says, candidates can choose which prompts to discuss and are not expected to discuss all 5 prompts in the time available, but should continue their discussion until asked to stop by the interlocutor, which means the examiner. So you don't need to discuss all of the 5 prompts. So, time for my first tip. 2 minutes is not a long time to talk about a topic. So what you need to do in this 2 minutes is to state your opinion, to say why you have this opinion, give a justification for your opinion, but you also need to ask your partner some questions. So give your opinions, justify your opinions, and ask your partner some questions. And this is from the Cambridge English First Handbook for Teachers as well. And it says the focus is on sustaining an interaction, which means continuing a conversation, as well as exchanging ideas, so saying your opinions, expressing and justifying your opinions, saying why, agreeing or disagreeing with what your partner says, because maybe they say something and you don't agree, or maybe they say something and you do agree, and you should say that. You also need to suggest ideas, to speculate, to say what might be happening, because you don't know for definite, to evaluate and to reach a decision through negotiation. Because once you've spoken to your partner for 2 minutes about a topic, the examiners will stop you. They will ask you one more question, which you have to talk about with your partner and try to come to a decision about. Normally this question might be asking you which of the 5 prompts you think is most important, for example. So after you've spoken about the general topic and the 5 prompts for 2 minutes, the examiner will stop you and ask you perhaps which of the 5 prompts is most important, and you need to then have a negotiation with the other candidate to try to come to a decision. But it doesn't matter if you don't reach a decision. So what I want us to do now is to practice some opinions, justifications, and question phrases. So what I'd like you to do is to pause this video and to write down some phrases that you can use to give your opinions, or to give justifications, or to ask your partner some questions. And when you've written down some things for each of these 3 categories, press play and I will show you which phrases I use. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. Let's have a look at the phrases which I wrote down. So, to express an opinion, you could say, I think. Very simple. Or, in my opinion, or, I believe that. To justify your opinions, you could say, because, or, it's not the first time I've seen something happen, or, as. And finally, to ask your partner some questions, you could say, do you agree? What do you think? What's your opinion? And you can use these phrases in any order. So for example, I could say, I think that putting up security cameras would attract more tourists to the town, as it will make tourists feel safer when they are walking around the town, especially at night time. What do you think? And there we go. You give an opinion, you give a justification, and you ask your partner. And then, when they respond, you can say whether you agree or whether you disagree, and it will lead into further discussion. So, what I'd like you to do is to practice this again. So if you type in this web address into your internet browser, you will find the same file that we looked at earlier. If you already have it open, that's fantastic. It might be easier for you to look at it here on this screen, or you can look at it here in my presentation. The main question is, why would these ideas attract more tourists to the town? And what I'd like you to do is to write down an answer, including an opinion, a justification, and a question, about what you could say with the topic building holiday flats. So pause this video now and write down what you could say, including opinion, justification, and question, about building holiday flats with relevance to this question. And when you're ready, press play. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. And this is what I wrote down. I think building holiday flats would attract more tourists because it will provide people with a place to stay when they come to visit and see the other attractions. Do you agree? There you go. We have my opinion, my justification, and my question. Now you may have a different opinion, which is absolutely fine. That's not important. You can agree or disagree with what your partner says. The most important thing is to make sure you're saying your opinions, your justifications, and you're asking your partner what they think. Okay, so time for my next tip. You need to know how to move on from one idea to the next idea in an easy and comfortable way. So there are some key phrases that you can use to move from one topic to another topic. For example, shall we move on to building a large nightclub? So maybe you've given your opinion, your justification, and you've asked your partner what they think about building holiday flats, and they say what they think, and you can't think of anything else to add. So then you move on to another topic and you say, shall we move on to, and then choose another topic. Building a large nightclub, for example, which was also one of these 5 topics surrounding the key question. You could also say, let's talk about. Let's talk about having more shops. This type of phrase is a good one that you could start the discussion with right at the beginning of the task. You could say, let's start with having more shops, or let's talk about having more shops. And then you go on to give your opinion, your justification, and your question to your partner. You could also say, what do you think about providing parks? What do you think about? What do you think about building a large nightclub? And what I'd like you to do is to think of some of your own phrases that you can use to move on to the next idea. And if you get a good course book, for example this one, if you type in this web address into your internet browser, then you will find in this book lots of really useful examples and some really useful phrases to use in this part of the exam for moving on to the next topic and to express your opinion as well. So my third tip is to repeat tips 1 and 2. So tip 1, give your opinion, give your justification, ask your partner. Tip 2, move on to the next topic at an appropriate time. And just keep repeating that until the examiner stops you. Then, tip 4. As I said earlier, the examiner will stop you and then he will give you 1 minute to make a decision related to the topic you have been talking about. So the examiner stops you and then asks you and your partner to make some type of decision related to this topic. For example, which idea would be best for the town? Building nightclubs, building hotels, providing parks. which idea would be best for the town. And as I said earlier, you don't need to reach a decision with your partner. If you have different opinions, that's fine. But you do need to show that you can talk and negotiate with the other candidate. Show that you can have a discussion with them and that you can use some language of negotiation. For example, I see your point, but I feel that this idea is stronger because. So I'm showing that I understand, but I'm then saying I think this idea is stronger and I'm given a reason why. Because. Okay. And this is an example of what two candidates could say when they are discussing this topic, and this would get them some good marks. So, you could have one candidate called Paolo, and he could say, I think building a nightclub is best because it would attract lots of young people to the town. Then another candidate, for example Sandra, could say, I think having more boutique shops would be better, particularly in older towns, because classical architecture lends itself to a more specific type of tourist. So they are disagreeing at the moment, and that is fine because they don't need to reach a decision. And then Paolo could say, that's a good point. So he's showing that he understands what she's saying. But I still think building a nightclub is a better idea, especially if there is a university or college as well. And then he's showing that he can negotiate with her because he's saying again his idea and he's giving more reasons for why he thinks like this. And she still might not agree with him. This is a really good example of how you can negotiate with someone by giving ideas for your opinions and justifications. Okay. So time for tip number 5. It might be that you are in the exam and the person you're in the exam with is a very quiet person, maybe very shy or maybe very nervous, and they don't want to say anything, or they don't say very much at all. In which case, you might need to ask your partner some questions to try to get them talking more to keep a better flow of conversation. So, here's an example of a type of question you could ask, or what you could say. If Paolo says, I think building a nightclub is best because it would attract lots of young people, and the other candidate just says, I agree, they're not saying very much here. So what you can do to help them and to help yourself is to say, but what do you think, or what about having more shops? Don't you think that could be a better idea? And then you're trying to give them more ideas to help them talk. And that's a really good thing to do if the other candidate is quiet or shy. Okay, so for homework, what I'd like you to do is to design your own topic for part 3. So think of a key question, and then think of 5 ideas that can help you talking about this question. And then what you should do is to write down what you could say to answer this type of question, expressing your ideas, saying your opinions and giving justifications, and then asking your partner what they think. And you should practice doing this then with a friend or with someone you know, and tell them what you've learned in this video. Tell them what you need to do in this part of the exam. And then practice with them, and that will be a really good way to prepare. And if you'd like to practice this part of the exam with me, you can go to this web address here, complete the form, and I will be in touch with you about live lessons, or my online lessons. You can also fill out this form if you want to book lessons for another part of the exam or for English in general. So I hope you enjoyed this video lesson, and in the next video lesson we're going to be focusing on the FCE B2 First Certificate Exam, speaking paper